I have discovered something that will change the way you experience pain forever, and I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to share with you. Right now, in this very moment, there is a switch inside you that can transform your relationship with suffering, and most people go their entire lives without ever knowing it exists. Let me tell you what happened to a woman who came to see me many years ago. She walked into my office, bent over, her face etched with lines of chronic pain that had plagued her for 7 years. 7 years. She had seen every doctor, tried every treatment, spent thousands of dollars, and nothing had given her lasting relief. She sat across from me with tears in her eyes and said something I will never forget. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I'm not afraid of dying anymore. I'm afraid of living like this for another day." And I looked at her, and I said something that shocked her. I said, "Your pain is not your enemy. Your pain is a messenger, and you've been trying to kill the messenger instead of reading the message. You see, what I'm about to teach you goes against everything you've been told about pain. We've been conditioned to fight pain, to resist it, to push it away with all our might. We take pills to numb it. We distract ourselves to avoid it. We tense our bodies and clench our jaws and build walls around it. And what happens? The pain grows stronger. It becomes more persistent. It dominates our lives. But there is another way. A way so simple, so profound, that when you truly understand it, everything changes. Not just your pain, but your entire experience of being alive. The secret is this: pain cannot survive in the presence of complete acceptance and loving attention. Let me say that again because it's the key to everything. Pain cannot survive in the presence of complete acceptance and loving attention. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, "But Dr. Murphy, if I accept my pain, won't that make it stay? Won't I be giving up?" And that's exactly the trap that keeps you suffering. That's the lie your conditioned mind has been telling you. The truth is radically different. When you resist pain, you feed it energy. Resistance is like oxygen to a fire. Every time you say, "I hate this pain," or "Why won't this go away?" or "This shouldn't be happening to me," you're actually strengthening the neural pathways that perpetuate your suffering. But when you turn toward your pain with curiosity, with gentleness, with a willingness to simply be with it without trying to change it, something miraculous begins to happen. The pain begins to shift. It begins to soften. Sometimes it dissolves completely, and sometimes it transforms into something else entirely, something you can live with, something that no longer controls your life. I want you to understand something fundamental about how your mind works. Your subconscious mind, which controls every automatic function in your body, every healing process, every sensation, is always listening to the dominant thoughts and feelings you hold. Always. It doesn't judge whether these thoughts are good or bad, helpful or harmful. It simply responds to them as instructions. When you constantly think thoughts of resistance toward your pain, your subconscious receives this as an instruction that says, "There is danger here. Stay alert. Keep the pain signals active. Protect me." And so it does. Your nervous system remains on high alert. Your muscles stay tense. Your inflammation remains elevated, and the pain continues. But when you change your internal dialogue, when you begin to speak to your pain differently, everything shifts. Your subconscious receives a new instruction. It hears safety instead of danger. It hears acceptance instead of resistance. And it begins to relax the systems that were keeping you in pain. Your nervous system doesn't need convincing through willpower. It needs demonstration through experience. And that's what this affirmation provides. Every time you speak it, you're giving your body evidence that this moment is safe, that this breath is safe, that you are safe. Think of a child who's afraid of the dark. You don't lecture them about statistics. You don't explain the absence of monsters. You sit with them. You turn on a small light. You show them, gently and repeatedly, that the darkness holds no threat. Eventually, their nervous system learns. The fear dissolves not through argument, but through accumulated evidence of safety. This is what you're doing for yourself. Now, I want you to understand something crucial about the subconscious mind. It cannot argue. It cannot debate. It simply accepts what is repeated with feeling and conviction. Your conscious mind might resist. It might say, "But I'm not safe. Look at my life. Look at what happened." That's normal. That's the analytical mind doing what it was designed to do. But beneath that surface chatter, your subconscious is listening. And when you speak with gentle authority, with kindness, with the tone of someone who genuinely cares for themselves, something profound happens. The subconscious begins to reorganize around this new truth. I've watched this transformation in countless individuals. A woman who couldn't leave her house without panic attacks. She used this affirmation 200 times a day, not desperately, not frantically, but the way you might speak to a frightened animal, coaxing it toward trust. Within weeks, her world expanded. The grocery store became manageable. Then the park, then the cafe where she'd once had her first attack. Her pain didn't vanish overnight, but its grip loosened. The prison walls became permeable, and eventually, they dissolved altogether. This is available to you right now. Not someday when you're fixed or healed or finally worthy, right now. In this exact moment, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what your body is telling you, you can plant this seed, you can speak this truth, and your subconscious will begin its quiet, faithful work of making it real. You might say, but Dr. Murphy, I've tried affirmations before, I've said positive things to myself and nothing changed. I understand. And here's why that happened. You were speaking words, but your feeling didn't match. You were reciting statements while your heart was heavy with doubt. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to words alone, it responds to feeling-toned thoughts. It responds to conviction. When you say, I am healthy, but you feel sick, afraid, and hopeless, which message is stronger? The words or the feeling? The feeling, always. Your subconscious accepts the dominant impression, so the secret is not just to speak the words, but to feel them as true, even if only for a moment. To assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. As I've taught countless times, you don't need to feel it perfectly. You don't need to feel it for hours. But you must touch that feeling, however briefly. Close your eyes and imagine how you would feel if this healing were already complete. What would relief feel like in your chest? What would freedom feel like in your limbs? What would gratitude feel like rising in your heart? Dwell there, even for 30 seconds. That's enough to impress your subconscious mind. And here's something truly wonderful. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. The first time you try to feel healthy while your body is in pain, it may seem impossible, but persistence breaks through. Each time you return to this feeling, you're strengthening a new pathway in your consciousness. You're training your mind to accept a new reality. Think of it like learning to play an instrument. The first time you sit at a piano, your fingers are clumsy, the notes don't flow. But you practice, day after day, and eventually your fingers remember. They move naturally. The music flows without effort. Your mind works the same way. At first, holding the feeling of health requires effort and concentration, but with daily practice, it becomes natural. Your subconscious begins to accept this new pattern as normal. And what the subconscious accepts as true, it must manifest in your experience. I want you to understand something that will change everything for you. Your subconscious mind is working right now, this very moment, even as you listen to these words. It never stops. It's always creating, always manifesting, always bringing forth conditions that match your habitual thinking. And here's what most people don't realize, this process isn't random. Your subconscious doesn't pick and choose which thoughts to manifest based on what would be good for you. No, it works with precision and absolute impartiality. It takes whatever you give it, whether that's fear or faith, doubt or conviction, and it goes to work making that your reality. Think of it this way. If you spend your days worrying about financial lack, if you constantly tell yourself, I can't afford this, or money is so hard to come by, your subconscious accepts these statements as instructions. It doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, but wait, you actually want abundance. It simply begins to create circumstances that align with the instruction you've given it, which is scarcity. On the other hand, when you consciously, deliberately impress your subconscious with thoughts of abundance, with images of prosperity flowing to you easily and naturally, it accepts those instructions with the same perfect obedience, and it begins orchestrating situations, opportunities, and insights that bring that prosperity into your physical experience. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. You're wondering, but Joseph, I've tried positive thinking before, and it didn't work. Let me address this directly, because it's crucial you understand the difference between wishful thinking and true subconscious programming. Wishful thinking is when you say something positive with your conscious mind while your subconscious remains programmed with the opposite belief. It's like trying to drive forward with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. You might repeat affirmations all day long, but if deep down in that subconscious realm you don't actually believe what you're saying, if there's resistance or skepticism embedded in your deeper mind, then you're sending mixed signals. The real work, the transformative work, happens when you go deeper, when you enter into a relaxed, receptive state, what we call the alpha state, and you plant your desires in your subconscious mind with feeling, with conviction, with absolute acceptance. This is when your affirmations become commands rather than wishes. This is when your imagination becomes a creative force rather than mere fantasy. You see, most people live their entire lives in the beta state, the waking, conscious, analytical state, where the rational mind acts as a gatekeeper, screening every thought, judging every idea. In this state, if you say, "I am wealthy," your conscious mind immediately objects. "No, you're not. Look at your bank account. Look at your bills." And that objection, that resistance, prevents the seed from ever reaching the fertile soil of your subconscious. But when you relax, when you quiet that critical, analytical mind through meditation, through the drowsy state just before sleep, through prayer or deep relaxation, you bypass the gatekeeper. The door to your subconscious swings open. Now, when you affirm, "I am wealthy," there is no voice to contradict you. The subconscious accepts it as fact, as instruction, as divine command. This is why I always emphasize the importance of your mental state during affirmation. It's not just what you say, it's the state of consciousness in which you say it. You can repeat affirmations 1,000 times a day while washing dishes, while driving, while distracted by worry, and they will have minimal effect. But spend 10 minutes in deep relaxation, in that beautiful drowsy state before sleep, impressing your desire upon your subconscious with feeling and conviction, and you set powerful forces into motion. Let me give you a concrete example. A woman once came to me consumed by anxiety about her son who was overseas in the military. Every day she worried. Every night she couldn't sleep, imagining all the terrible things that might happen to him. I said to her, "Your worry is a negative prayer. Every time you imagine harm coming to your son, you are using the same creative power that could protect him, but in reverse." I taught her to enter into a relaxed state each night before sleep, and to imagine her son safe, healthy, writing her a letter filled with good news. I told her to feel the relief, the joy, the gratitude as though it were already real. She practiced this faithfully, and within weeks, not only did her anxiety dissolve, but she received word that her son had been transferred to a safer assignment. Coincidence? I think not. Her changed consciousness changed her reality. Now, I want you to understand something profound about this principle. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "Well, I don't think that's possible," or "That sounds a bit far-fetched." No, it accepts what you persistently impress upon it. It's completely impersonal. It will work just as hard to make you sick as it will to make you well. It will work just as diligently to make you poor as it will to make you wealthy. This is why I've seen people literally pray themselves into poverty. They say, "I know I should be grateful, but..." And then they spend the next 20 minutes describing in vivid detail everything that's wrong with their finances. They're not praying. They're programming their subconscious for lack. Let me share another case with you. A businessman came to me absolutely convinced he was going to lose his company. The economy was challenging, yes, but his real problem wasn't the economy, it was the economy of his thinking. Every morning, he would wake up and immediately begin mental catastrophizing. He'd imagine creditors calling. He'd visualize bankruptcy proceedings. He'd feel the shame of failure before failure had even occurred. I asked him a simple question. "How much time each day do you spend imagining your business thriving?" He looked at me blankly. "None," he admitted. "I'm too worried about preventing disaster." You see the trap? He was using the full creative power of his imagination, that magnificent gift, to construct his own downfall. So we reversed the process. Instead of spending his mental energy building monuments to fear, he began to construct a different reality in his mind. Every morning and evening, he would sit quietly and imagine his business flourishing. He'd see customers satisfied. He'd feel the sensation of relief and success. He'd hear words of congratulation. He didn't just think about success, he felt it, lived it, breathed it in his imagination. 3 months later, his business had completely turned around. New clients appeared seemingly out of nowhere. A deal he thought was dead suddenly resurrected. His energy changed, and when his energy changed, people responded differently to him. Was it magic? No, it was law, the law of consciousness. This principle operates whether you understand it or not, whether you accept it or not, whether you like it or not. Gravity doesn't care if you believe in it. Step off a cliff, and you'll discover its reality quickly enough. The same is true for the law of your subconscious mind. I've watched this unfold in thousands of lives. A woman comes to me, tears streaming down her face. "Dr. Murphy," she says, "why does God hate me? Why am I always sick? Why do terrible things keep happening to me?" And I ask her a simple question. "What do you think about most of the day? What are your habitual thoughts?" The answer is always the same. She's been dwelling on sickness, meditating on lack, rehearsing her fears. She's been impressing her subconscious with images of disaster, and her subconscious, being the faithful servant that it is, has obliged her. It has manufactured her reality according to the blueprint she provided. This is not punishment. This is principle. Your subconscious doesn't judge your requests. It doesn't say, "Oh, this is a terrible idea, I won't manifest this." No. It accepts whatever you impress upon it. It's neutral, impersonal. Like the soil that will grow weeds just as readily as roses. The soil doesn't care what you plant. It simply produces according to the seed. So, what have you been planting? Take an honest inventory right now. What thoughts occupy your mind as you drift off to sleep? What internal dialogue runs through your head when you're alone? Are you rehearsing old grievances? Playing and replaying conversations where someone wronged you? Imagining future scenarios where things go wrong? If so, you're planting seeds, and I promise you, they will grow. But here's the magnificent truth that changes everything. You can change your planting. Starting this very moment. You are not a victim of your past programming. You are not trapped by your conditioning. You have the power, right now, to begin impressing new ideas upon your subconscious mind. Let me show you how deliberate this can be. There was a man in my congregation, a businessman who had failed repeatedly. Every venture crumbled, every partnership dissolved. He came to me bitter and angry, convinced the world was against him. I asked him to do something simple. Spend 10 minutes every night before sleep, visualizing success. Not wishful thinking, vivid, sensory-rich imaging. Seeing himself signing contracts, shaking hands, depositing checks. He resisted at first. "That's just fantasy," he said. "Try it anyway," I told him. Within 3 weeks, Mark called me with genuine excitement in his voice. 2 clients came back, he said. Both apologized for the delay and signed new contracts. And I just closed a deal I thought was completely dead. What happened? Mark stopped feeding his subconscious mind images of failure and scarcity. He stopped rehearsing worst-case scenarios. Instead, he impressed upon his deeper mind the image of success, abundance, and satisfied clients. His subconscious, which knows nothing of the difference between what you imagine vividly and what you experience physically, accepted this new image as reality and began to outpicture it in his world. This is not wishful thinking. This is scientific prayer. When you imagine clearly, feel deeply, and persist faithfully, you are using a law as dependable as the law of gravity. I've seen this work in relationships too. A woman once came to me heartbroken. Her marriage was crumbling. Every conversation with her husband ended in arguments. She told me bitterly, "He never listens. He doesn't care about my feelings anymore." I asked her, "What do you think about when you picture your husband?" She paused, then admitted, "I see him ignoring me. I imagine him being cold and dismissive." "And how often do you rehearse this scene?" I asked. "Every day," she whispered. "Many times a day." There was the problem. She was praying negatively. She was impressing upon her subconscious mind the exact conditions she didn't want, and the law, being impersonal, was simply manifesting what she truly believed and felt. I guided her to change her mental imagery. Each night before sleep, she was to imagine a loving conversation with her husband. She was to feel his warmth, hear his kind words, see his smile. She was to make it real in her imagination. "Even if it feels like pretending?" she asked. "Especially then," I replied. "Your subconscious doesn't know you're pretending. It only knows the image you're feeding it and the feeling you're generating. She looked skeptical, but I could see the wheels turning. So I just pretend everything's fine when it's not? Not pretend everything's fine, I clarified. You imagine everything times becoming times fine. There's a difference. One is denial, the other is direction. You're not lying to yourself, you're programming yourself. I leaned forward, wanting her to really grasp this. Think of it like an architect with blueprints. The building doesn't exist yet. The architect isn't delusional for drawing plans of something that isn't there. Those plans are the necessary first step. Your imagination works the same way. You're drafting the blueprint that your subconscious will build. She nodded slowly, and I could see the concept beginning to take root. Here's what I want you to understand, I continued. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Scientists have proven this. When you imagine biting into a lemon, your mouth waters. When you imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, your palms sweat. Your body responds to imagination as if it were reality. I paused to let that sink in. This is why athletes visualize their performance before competing. Why surgeons mentally rehearse procedures. Why musicians play concerts in their minds before stepping on stage. They're not wasting time daydreaming, they're programming their subconscious for success. The young woman was listening intently now, all skepticism temporarily suspended. So when you imagine having the money you need, imagine it specifically. Don't just think, I want money. See yourself checking your bank balance. Feel the relief. Imagine paying your bills with ease. Picture yourself sleeping soundly without financial anxiety. Make it vivid. Make it real in your mind first. And it just appears? She asked, still grappling with the mechanism. Not magically, no, I said. But opportunities appear. Ideas come to you. You meet the right person at the right time. You suddenly remember a forgotten resource. Your subconscious, now programmed with the image of financial security, begins orchestrating circumstances to match that image. This is not coincidence. This is not luck. This is the precise mechanism by which your deeper mind operates. It works through what I call the law of attraction, not in some mystical sense, but as a psychological and spiritual reality. Your subconscious is connected to infinite intelligence, to the creative power that formed galaxies and orchestrates the movement of planets. When you impress it with a clear desire, it begins to draw toward you the people, circumstances, and opportunities needed to fulfill that desire. I've seen this repeatedly in my counseling work. A woman came to me devastated because her husband had left her. She felt unlovable, worthless, abandoned. I taught her this principle. Every night before sleep she would affirm, I am loved, I am worthy, I attract harmonious relationships. She visualized herself happy, surrounded by genuine affection. Within 3 months, her entire demeanor changed. She stopped radiating desperation and began radiating confidence. Her husband noticed. Friends remarked on her transformation. Eventually, through a series of natural events that seemed miraculous to her, reconciliation occurred. But it wasn't a miracle, it was law, as predictable as gravity. The same principle applies to every area of your life. Health, relationships, career advancement, creative expression. Your subconscious mind is the master weaver, pulling threads together in patterns you cannot consciously perceive. Your job is simply to give it the pattern, the blueprint, through consistent mental imagery combined with feeling. And here's what most people miss. Feeling is the secret ingredient. You can repeat affirmations mechanically for years and see no results if there's no emotional conviction behind them. Your subconscious responds to feeling-toned thoughts. When you say, I am prosperous while feeling poor, doubtful, and fearful, you're impressing poverty onto your subconscious, not prosperity. The feeling is what carries the message into your deeper mind. This is why I emphasize the importance of entering a relaxed, drowsy state before impressing your subconscious. In this state, your critical, conscious mind relaxes its guard. Your subconscious becomes receptive, like soil ready to receive seeds. The images and affirmations you plant in this fertile state take root quickly and begin to grow. Think of your mind as a garden. Your conscious mind is the gardener who chooses which seeds to plant. Your subconscious is the soil that grows whatever is planted, weeds or flowers, it doesn't discriminate. If you've been planting seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, don't be surprised when your life yields a harvest of struggle. But here's the magnificent truth. You can change what you plant starting right now, in this very moment. I've counseled thousands of people over my decades of ministry and teaching, and do you know what the most common complaint is? Dr. Murphy, I've tried everything. Nothing works for me. And when I dig deeper, I discover they've been trying with their conscious mind alone, willpower, force, effort. They've been trying to move mountains with their bare hands instead of using the infinite power within. Let me share something crucial with you. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to force. It doesn't care about your desperation or how hard you're trying. It responds to belief, to feeling, to the images you consistently hold in your awareness. This is why affirmations alone often fail. You can repeat "I am wealthy" 10,000 times, but if underneath that repetition you feel poor, if you're accompanied by anxiety about bills, if you're looking at your bank account with fear, your subconscious receives the fear, not the words. The subconscious speaks the language of feeling and imagery. It's like a camera that records the emotional tone of your thoughts. You must feel your desire as already fulfilled. You must live in the end result, not in the wanting of it. Here's a technique I've taught that has transformed countless lives. Before you sleep each night, enter into a drowsy, sleepy state. This is when your conscious, critical mind relaxes its grip and your subconscious becomes highly receptive. In this state, construct a simple scene that would naturally occur if your desire were already realized. Don't make it elaborate. Keep it short and simple. If you desire financial abundance, perhaps you see yourself depositing a large check, feeling the satisfaction of financial security. If you seek healing, feel yourself doing activities that perfect health would allow. The key is the feeling of naturalness, the sense of "isn't it wonderful?" Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether what you're imagining is real or imagined. It simply accepts the impression you give it and begins to work on manifesting it in your outer world. This is why the feeling is so crucial. When you feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, you are speaking the language your subconscious understands. Let me share with you a profound technique that has worked miracles for countless people. It's called the lullaby method, and it's remarkably simple yet extraordinarily powerful. As you're drifting off to sleep at night, when your conscious mind is becoming drowsy and your critical faculty is relaxing its grip, repeat a simple phrase that implies your wish is already fulfilled. For example, if you're seeking financial prosperity, you might gently repeat to yourself, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." You're thanking the infinite intelligence for the abundance that is now yours. Or you might whisper, "Isn't it wonderful?" Feel the wonder of your wish fulfilled as you drift into sleep. The drowsy state is the ideal time because your subconscious is most receptive, most impressionable. I knew a woman who was deeply in debt and felt overwhelmed by financial pressure. Every night for 30 days, as she fell asleep, she would feel herself holding a bank statement showing a substantial balance. She didn't worry about how it would come. She didn't analyze or question. She simply felt the relief, the joy, the security of having more than enough. Within that month, an unexpected inheritance came through a distant relative she barely knew. Her subconscious mind found a way. This is the secret that eludes so many people. They pray, they wish, they hope, but they do it from a consciousness of lack. They beg and plead, which only reinforces the feeling of not having. True prayer is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It's claiming your good now, in consciousness, and then allowing the infinite intelligence to bring it forth into manifestation. When you pray, you must believe that you have already received. This is the secret that transforms prayer from mere words into a creative force. You don't pray to change God's mind, you pray to change your own consciousness. You pray to align yourself with the abundance that already exists in the invisible realm of spirit. Let me share something with you that will revolutionize your understanding. The moment you desire something, the fulfillment of that desire already exists as a reality in the fourth dimension, the dimension of mind. Your job is not to create it, it's already created. Your job is to accept it, to feel it as real, to make it natural in your imagination. Then the three-dimensional world must conform to your inner conviction. I've counseled thousands of people over the years, and I've noticed a pattern. Those who succeed in manifesting their desires all share one quality. They develop a relaxed, natural feeling about their good. They don't strain or force. They simply accept. They quietly claim their desire as already accomplished, and then they go about their day with peace and confidence. Think of a child at Christmas who has been promised a specific gift. The child doesn't worry, doesn't doubt, doesn't question. The child imagines playing with that gift, talks about it naturally, feels the joy of it even before Christmas morning arrives. That child is in the perfect state of receptivity. That child has claimed the gift in consciousness. This is how you must approach your desires. Claim them now. Not tomorrow. Not when conditions change. Not when you're more worthy now. In consciousness, you can claim health while your body shows symptoms. You can claim wealth while your bank account is empty. You can claim love while you're alone. Because consciousness is the only reality. And when you change consciousness, the outer world must follow. I want you to understand something profound. There is no virtue in suffering. There is no spiritual merit in lack. God, the infinite intelligence within you, desires your prosperity, your happiness, your success. It's your birthright. The universe is lavish, extravagant, abundant. Look at nature, billions of seeds, countless stars, endless variety. That same creative power flows through you, wants to express through you, and it can only do so to the degree that you accept it in consciousness. So stop postponing your good. Stop thinking you need to earn it or deserve it. You need only accept it in faith. Your good is already established in the invisible, in the realm of infinite possibilities. Your role is not to create it from scratch. You couldn't if you tried. Your role is to become receptive to it, to align your inner conversations with its reality, to give thanks for what is already yours in spirit before it manifests in form. You see, this is where so many people stumble. They wait for the evidence before they believe. They say, "Show me the money, and then I'll have faith." But that's backwards. That's working against the very principle that governs manifestation. Faith comes first. The feeling of the wish fulfilled comes first. The internal acceptance comes first. The outer world has no choice but to follow. I've watched this principle work in my own life countless times, and I've seen it work in the lives of thousands of people who've applied these truths. A woman came to me once, desperate for financial relief. She was drowning in debt, and every morning she woke up thinking about what she owed, what she lacked, how impossible her situation seemed. I asked her a simple question: can you, for just 5 minutes before you fall asleep, imagine yourself free? Can you feel the relief of having more than enough? She said she'd try. For weeks, she practiced this. Every night, she would lie in bed and imagine opening her bank statement and seeing a comfortable balance. She'd imagine the feeling of ease, of breathing without that knot in her chest. She didn't know how it would happen. She didn't strategize or scheme. She simply accepted the feeling as real. Within 2 months, an unexpected inheritance came through from a distant relative she barely knew. The amount was almost exactly what she needed to clear her debts and start fresh. Coincidence? I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in consciousness creating circumstances. Now, I'm not saying you sit around and do nothing. Inspired action will come. When you're aligned with your desire in consciousness, you'll be moved to act, but it won't feel like struggle. It'll feel natural, even inevitable. Doors will open that you didn't even know existed. People will appear with exactly what you need. Opportunities will present themselves as if orchestrated by an invisible hand, because they are. This is the secret the mystics have known for centuries. You don't chase your good, you attract it. You become a magnet for it by assuming you already are what you wish to be. You stop living in the state of wanting and start living in the state of having. And the universe, which is nothing but consciousness pushed out, rearranges itself to match your inner conviction. This is why affirmations, when done correctly, are not mere positive thinking. They are not wishful daydreams. They are declarations of truth spoken from the end result. When you say, "I am prosperous," you are not lying to yourself. You are claiming the truth of what already exists in the invisible realm of consciousness. You are calling it forth into the visible world. But here is where most people stumble. They affirm something once or twice, then look around at their circumstances and say, "See, nothing's changed. This doesn't work." They have missed the entire point. The change does not happen outside first. It happens inside. The outer world is always the last to know. It is the slow, faithful servant that follows the master, your consciousness, wherever it leads. You must persist in the assumption. You must live in it, breathe in it, think from it, not about it. There is a monumental difference. When you think about wealth, you are still observing it from a distance, from the position of lack. But when you think from wealth, you are already in it. Your thoughts, your decisions, your reactions all come from the state of abundance. You no longer worry about bills, because wealthy people do not obsess over bills. You no longer feel jealous of others' success because you know your own is guaranteed. You move through life differently because you are different. Let me share something with you that I have witnessed time and time again. A person who truly accepts their desire as already fulfilled begins to act in harmony with that state, often without conscious effort. If you have assumed you are loved, you will not desperately chase affection. You will carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who is already cherished. And that very energy will draw love to you like a flame draws moths in the night. If you have assumed you are successful, you will not beg for opportunities. You will recognize them when they appear because your inner eyes are open. You will speak with authority, move with purpose, and others will sense it. They will want to be part of whatever you are building because confidence is contagious and assumption is the mother of confidence. You see, the mind does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. This is not poetry, this is neuroscience confirming what the ancients knew. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, your brain begins to rewire itself. New neural pathways form. Old patterns of limitation dissolve. You are literally rebuilding the architecture of your consciousness. I have watched people transform their entire lives by changing nothing but their inner conversations. A woman once came to me, burdened by debt, working 2 jobs, seeing no way out. I asked her a simple question. What would you say to yourself if you were financially free? She hesitated. She had never allowed herself to think that way. Together, we crafted a new inner dialogue. Every night before sleep, she would whisper to herself, I am so grateful for my abundant income. Money flows to me easily and naturally. Within 6 months, she received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew existed. Within a year, she had started a business that grew beyond her wildest expectations. Did the assumption create the inheritance? Did it manifest the business opportunity? Or did the assumption open her eyes to possibilities that were always there, waiting for someone confident enough to seize them? The answer does not matter. What matters is this: she changed her inner world, and her outer world rearranged itself to match. You must understand something fundamental about the universe you inhabit. It is not a cold, mechanical place indifferent to your desires. It is responsive. It is alive with intelligence. Your assumptions are like seeds planted in fertile soil. You do not see the seed once it enters the earth. You do not watch it break open and send roots downward, tendrils upward. But you trust the process. You water the ground. You wait with expectation. And in time, what was invisible becomes visible. This is faith, not blind belief, but intelligent expectation based on understanding how consciousness operates. You assume the wish fulfilled because you know that assumption, persisted in, hardens into fact. This principle applies to every area of your life. If you're seeking abundance, you don't wait until the money appears to feel abundant. You feel abundant now. You walk as one who has plenty. You speak as one who lacks nothing. You give thanks for wealth that hasn't yet materialized in your bank account, because in consciousness, it already exists. I've watched people transform their financial circumstances not through strain or worry, but through this inner shift. They stopped identifying with lack. They stopped telling the old story of limitation. Instead, they began to appropriate the feeling of financial freedom. They imagined how it would feel to pay bills with ease, to purchase without anxiety, to give generously. And as they sustained this inner state, circumstances rearranged themselves to match it. The same is true for health. You don't wait until your body is healed to feel well. You claim wellness now. In imagination, you see yourself vibrant and whole. You thank the invisible reality of perfect health, and your body, which is subject to your consciousness, begins to conform to the image you hold. This isn't denial of present circumstances. It's recognition of a higher truth. Yes, you acknowledge where you are, but you refuse to give it power by making it your dwelling place. You acknowledge the condition while affirming the greater reality of what you are claiming. Think of it this way. A sculptor doesn't look at a block of marble and see only stone. He sees the finished statue already present, waiting to be revealed. His imagination perceives what is invisible to others, and through his persistent vision and action, what he sees inwardly takes form outwardly. You are the sculptor of your life. The circumstances you face are simply raw material. Your imagination is the tool, and the design you hold in consciousness is the pattern that shapes everything. When you truly grasp this, prayer becomes joyful. It's no longer begging or pleading. It's not about convincing a distant deity to grant you favors. It's about alignment. It's about bringing your inner vision into such clarity and feeling that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. This is why I say that your feeling is the secret. Not your words, not your actions alone, but the feeling tone you carry within you. What do you feel yourself to be? What do you feel about your life, your future, your possibilities? Because whatever you feel about yourself becomes the blueprint that your subconscious mind follows with absolute precision. If you feel limited, you will find limitation. If you feel abundant, you will discover abundance. If you feel worthy, the world will reflect your worthiness back to you in 1,000 different ways. And this is where most people stumble. They want to change their circumstances, but they refuse to change their feeling about themselves. They want prosperity, but they feel poor. They want love, but they feel unworthy. They want success, but they feel like failures. And so they remain trapped in the very conditions they wish to escape, wondering why their prayers go unanswered, why their affirmations don't work, why nothing ever changes. The answer is simple. Your feeling is your fortune, not your thinking, not your wishing, not your hoping, your feeling. You see, you can repeat affirmations until your voice grows hoarse. You can visualize until your eyes ache. You can write out your desires on paper 1,000 times. But if underneath all of that activity, you still feel yourself to be the same person with the same limitations, nothing will change. The subconscious mind does not respond to your words. It responds to your conviction. It responds to the emotional acceptance of your wish as already fulfilled. Let me give you an example. Suppose you want to attract wealth into your life. You say, I am wealthy. Money flows to me easily and abundantly. But as you say these words, you feel anxious. You feel the pressure of your bills. You feel the emptiness of your bank account. You feel the fear of scarcity. What are you really impressing upon your subconscious mind? Not wealth, not abundance, but worry and lack. Your feeling is creating your future, and your feeling is one of poverty, regardless of the words you speak. Now suppose instead that you take time to enter into the feeling of already being wealthy. You imagine how it would feel to have financial freedom. You feel the relief, the security, the joy of knowing that all your needs are met. You dwell in this feeling. You return to it again and again until it becomes natural to you, until it becomes your dominant mood. Now you are impressing wealth upon your subconscious. Now you are giving it a blueprint it can follow. And what happens then? What happens when you've impressed this blueprint deeply enough into your subconscious mind? Your outer world begins to shift. Opportunities appear. Ideas come to you in the middle of the night. You meet people who connect you to resources you need. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, again and again. Some call this luck, some call it coincidence, but you and I know better. This is the law in action. This is your subconscious mind, now convinced of your wealth, rearranging your circumstances to match your inner conviction. Let me tell you about a woman I once counseled who came to me in desperation. She was a talented artist, but she was living in poverty. Her work was beautiful, but it wasn't selling. She told me, Dr. Murphy, I love what I do, but I'm tired of being poor. I'm tired of choosing between art supplies and groceries. I asked her a simple question. When you think about your art, what do you feel? She said immediately, I feel guilty. I feel like I'm being selfish. I feel like I should get a real job. There it was. The root of her problem wasn't in the marketplace. It wasn't that her art wasn't good enough. The problem was in her own mind. She was impressing poverty and guilt upon her subconscious every single day. Her subconscious was simply fulfilling the order she was giving it. I taught her to change her inner speech. Before she painted, she would say to herself, I am richly compensated for doing what I love. My art brings joy to others, and abundance flows to me easily and naturally. She said it not as a hope, not as a wish, but as a fact, as something already true in the invisible realm, now making itself visible. Within 6 months, everything changed. A gallery owner discovered her work. She was commissioned for a large corporate installation. Her income tripled, then quadrupled. Did the quality of her art suddenly improve? No. Her art was always excellent. What changed was her consciousness. What changed was the blueprint she was giving to her subconscious mind. Let me tell you what happened next. She started receiving commissions from galleries she'd only dreamed of working with. Her prices tripled. Critics who had ignored her for years suddenly wanted interviews. And she told me something profound. The art didn't change overnight, but I changed. And when I changed, everything around me rearranged itself to match. This is the law in action. This is how the subconscious mind operates. Now, I want to address something that stops many people from using this power effectively. It's the question of worthiness. So many people come to me and say, "Dr. Murphy, I want abundance, but I don't feel worthy of it. I want love, but I don't feel deserving." And I tell them this: your feelings of unworthiness are themselves impressions made upon the subconscious mind, and they can be changed just as surely as any other impression. You are not unworthy. You never were. That's a lie that was planted in your consciousness, probably in childhood, probably by someone who themselves believed they were unworthy. It's an inherited limitation, passed down like an old coat that doesn't fit, and you have the power right now to take off that coat and leave it behind forever. Your subconscious mind doesn't care whether you feel worthy or not. It only cares about the impression you give it. If you consistently impress it with the idea that you are prosperous, healthy, and loved, it will manifest that reality regardless of how you feel about yourself in this moment. The feeling of worthiness will come as a result of the manifestation, not as a prerequisite for it. I've watched this happen countless times. A person begins affirming their good despite feeling unworthy. They persist. They continue to impress the subconscious with the new idea. And then, as the manifestations begin to appear, as their good starts flowing to them, the feeling of unworthiness dissolves like morning mist. They realize it was never real to begin with. It was just another false belief, another negative impression that needed to be replaced. The subconscious mind doesn't recognize the difference between $1 and $1 million, between a small good and a magnificent blessing. It only recognizes the feeling, the conviction, the mental equivalent you've established. When you feel worthy of one good thing, you feel worthy of all good things. The floodgates open. I've seen this transformation countless times. A woman came to me once, absolutely convinced she didn't deserve happiness. Her childhood had been difficult, marked by criticism and neglect. Every good thing that came into her life, she unconsciously pushed away. Relationships would begin beautifully, then she'd sabotage them. Job opportunities would present themselves, then she'd find reasons why she wasn't qualified. Money would come, then unexpected expenses would consume it. "Why does this keep happening to me?" she asked, genuinely bewildered by the pattern. I explained to her that her subconscious mind was simply being faithful to the dominant conviction she held about herself. She had impressed upon it, through years of negative self-talk and self-rejection, that she was unworthy of good. And the subconscious, like the faithful servant it is, was making sure her outer world matched her inner conviction. We worked together on a very simple technique. Each night before sleep, she would repeat, "I am a beloved child of the infinite. I am worthy of all good things. Divine love surrounds me and flows through me. I deserve happiness, success, and abundance." At first, these words felt hollow to her, even dishonest. "I don't believe them," she confessed. "That's perfectly all right," I told her. "You're not trying to convince your conscious mind, which is skeptical and analytical. You're impressing your subconscious mind, which accepts what is repeatedly presented to it with feeling. Keep affirming these truths, and your subconscious will gradually accept them as fact." She persisted. Within weeks, something remarkable shifted. She began to notice opportunities she'd previously overlooked. A friend invited her to a social gathering she would have normally declined. She went, and met someone who became a dear companion. A position opened at her workplace, and instead of immediately thinking "I'm not good enough," she applied and received it. These changes didn't happen because she suddenly became a different person. They happened because she changed the inner conversation. And when you change the inner conversation, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. This is the law, not opinion, not theory, law. Now, let me address something that often trips people up on this path. You might be thinking, but what about when I did think positively and nothing changed? What about when I tried to affirm something and it didn't work? This is a crucial question, and the answer reveals why many fail while others succeed. The issue is never with the law itself. The law is impersonal. It works for everyone, all the time, without exception. The issue is with understanding how to work with the law properly. When you affirm something with your lips while denying it in your heart, you're working against yourself. When you say I am prosperous while feeling poor, anxious, and desperate, which state are you actually occupying? The feeling. Always the feeling. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to words. It responds to feeling. It responds to conviction. It responds to the state you're genuinely dwelling in. This is why affirmations alone often fail. People repeat words mechanically, without any emotional investment, without any genuine acceptance, and then wonder why nothing changes. It's like planting seeds on concrete and wondering why nothing grows. The proper use of affirmation requires that you feel the truth of what you're affirming. You must accept it as fact in your inner world before it can manifest in your outer world. Let me give you a practical technique that bridges this gap. When you want to affirm something, don't just repeat words. Create a scene. A simple scene that would naturally occur if your desire were already fulfilled. Then replay that scene in your imagination with feeling. Feel yourself in that scene. Make it real in your mind. If you desire financial freedom, don't just say I am wealthy. Imagine a friend congratulating you on your success. Feel their handshake. Hear their voice. Experience the naturalness of the conversation. If you desire health, imagine your doctor telling you that your test results are perfect. Feel the relief. Hear the words. Accept it as real in that moment. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't question whether you're worthy of healing. It simply accepts the feeling, the conviction, the inner knowing that you've impressed upon it. And this is where so many people stumble. They treat prayer like begging. They treat visualization like wishful thinking. They approach their inner work with doubt sewn into every word. But I'm telling you, doubt is the only thing that blocks your good. Not God, not the universe, not fate, your own divided mind. When you pray, pray with acceptance. When you visualize, visualize with the feeling of completion. When you affirm, affirm with the quiet confidence of someone who already possesses what they seek. You wouldn't beg for something you already have, would you? Of course not. So stop begging in your prayers. Stop pleading in your meditations. Stop rehearsing lack when you're trying to demonstrate abundance. I knew a man once, a businessman, who was drowning in debt. Every night he would lie in bed and worry about the bills piling up. He'd picture the creditors calling. He'd imagine losing his home. And what do you think happened? More debt, more pressure, more loss. One day he came to me, desperate. I told him what I'm telling you now. Stop praying for money, I said. Start praying from the consciousness of wealth. He looked at me like I was speaking another language, but he was desperate enough to try. So each night, instead of worrying, he would close his eyes and feel what it would be like to be debt-free. He'd imagine opening his bank statement and seeing a healthy balance. He'd feel the relief in his chest, the freedom in his shoulders. He'd whisper, "Thank you for my financial freedom. I am debt-free and prosperous." At first, nothing changed externally, but something shifted inside him. His anxiety lessened, his mind cleared, and within weeks, opportunities he'd never noticed before started appearing. A new client, an unexpected refund, a business idea that turned into steady income. Within 6 months, he was completely out of debt. Now, was that a miracle? To the rational mind, maybe. But to those who understand the law, it was inevitable. He changed his inner conversation, he changed his feeling, and his outer world rearranged itself to match. You see, the moment you change your inner conversation, you set into motion forces that must by law manifest in your outer world. This isn't wishful thinking. This is how consciousness operates. Let me give you another example that demonstrates this principle with startling clarity. There was a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago. She had been trying to sell her house for over a year. Every week, the same story. No offers, no serious buyers, just disappointment after disappointment. She had prayed, she said. She had visualized. She had done everything she thought she was supposed to do. But when I asked her what she was really thinking about her house throughout the day, the truth came out. I don't think anyone will ever buy it, she admitted. The market is terrible. The house needs work. It's overpriced, probably. There it was. Her real inner conversation. I told her what I'm telling you now. You cannot hold one feeling in consciousness and produce another in experience. It's impossible. The law doesn't work that way. So I gave her an assignment. Every time she thought about that house, she was to feel the joy of the sale completed. Not hope for a sale. Not wish for a sale. The feeling of it done. She was to imagine her bank account with the deposit. She was to feel the relief and satisfaction of moving forward. And most importantly, she was to change her inner speech. Instead of "no one will buy it," she began repeating to herself, "It is sold. Thank God it is sold." 3 weeks later, she called me. The house had sold. Full price. Cash buyer. What changed? Not the market. Not the house. Her consciousness changed, and the outer world simply reflected that change. You must understand something fundamental here. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't debate whether your assumptions are true or false. It simply accepts what you persist in feeling and thinking, and then proceeds to manifest it in your world. This is why persistence in the right inner conversation is so critical. You cannot afford to be casual about what you're saying to yourself all day long. Your inner speech is the blueprint. Your feelings are the substance. And your outer world is the manifestation. Now, some people hear this and they panic. They think, "Oh no, I've been thinking negative thoughts. I've ruined everything." Stop right there. That kind of thinking is just more of the same pattern. You haven't ruined anything. You simply redirect your attention now. This moment, right now. You don't fight the old. You don't wrestle with darkness. You simply turn on the light. And here's what happens when you do this consistently. When you make this your daily practice, the subconscious begins to reorganize itself around these new patterns. It's like replanting a garden. You're not going out there arguing with the weeds, writing them letters, explaining why they shouldn't exist. You're planting new seeds. You're watering what you want to grow. I've seen this transformation occur in the most remarkable circumstances. A woman once came to me convinced she was incapable of prosperity. She'd grown up in severe poverty, and that experience had written itself deep into her consciousness. Every opportunity that came her way, she unconsciously sabotaged. She'd get close to success and then somehow snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I didn't ask her to analyze her childhood for years. I didn't have her make lists of her traumas. I simply taught her to plant new seeds. Every morning, before her day began, she would sit quietly and say, "I am a channel of divine prosperity. Abundance flows to me easily and naturally." That's all. Simple words, but spoken with feeling, with conviction, with the expectation that they were true. Within months, everything shifted. Not because the world changed, because she changed. Her subconscious accepted the new blueprint, and her external circumstances rearranged themselves to match. This is the part that confuses people. They think they need to figure out the how. How will I get the money? How will I meet the right person? How will the healing occur? And in asking how, they're actually blocking the very thing they're seeking, because the how is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is the impression, the feeling, the conviction. The subconscious knows how. It has access to infinite intelligence, to wisdom that your conscious mind cannot fathom. When you plant the seed correctly, when you impress it with clarity and emotion, the subconscious goes to work. It mobilizes forces you cannot see. It arranges circumstances, draws people into your orbit, creates what we call coincidences and luck. But none of this happens when you're standing at the edge of the garden, wringing your hands and worrying about whether the seeds will grow. You must plant your mental seed with confidence, water it with expectation, and then go about your day with a sense of inner knowing. This is not passivity, this is power. This is the difference between anxious hoping and certain expectation. I've watched people transform their entire financial situation not by working harder, but by changing their inner conversation about money. One man I knew was drowning in debt, consumed by fear every time he opened his mailbox. I asked him to do something that seemed absurd to his rational mind, every night before sleep, to feel the relief, the lightness, the freedom of financial abundance. Not to pretend he had money he didn't have, but to generate within himself the feeling state of someone who is financially secure. He resisted at first. "How can I feel abundant when my bank account says otherwise?" he asked. And I told him what I'm telling you now. Your bank account is the echo of yesterday's consciousness. If you want tomorrow to be different, you must change the signal you're broadcasting today. He began to practice this faithfully. Within weeks, opportunities appeared. A former colleague reached out with a consulting offer. An unexpected tax refund arrived. A payment he'd written off as lost was suddenly recovered. Were these miracles? No. These were the natural outworkings of a consciousness that had shifted from lack to abundance. His subconscious mind, impressed with the feeling of financial security, began to orchestrate his outer world to match his inner conviction. This is not magic. This is law. The law of consciousness. The law that states, as within, so without. As in consciousness, so in experience. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, well, let me check your bank balance first. It doesn't care about your current circumstances. It only knows what you consistently feel to be true. When you impress it with a desire backed by feeling and conviction, it goes to work immediately. It never sleeps. It never stops. It is working right now, in this very moment, to externalize whatever you have accepted as true about yourself and your life. So I ask you, what have you accepted? What conversation plays on repeat in your mind? What do you consistently feel about yourself, your potential, your future? Because that is what you are creating right now. And here's what makes this so urgent, so vitally important. Every moment you delay in changing your inner conversation is a moment spent reinforcing the old pattern. It's a moment spent deepening the groove in the record, making the neural pathway stronger, making the subconscious pattern more automatic. You see, the subconscious mind doesn't take vacations. It doesn't pause and wait for you to figure things out. It's working right now, this very second, executing the program you've given it. And if that program says I'm not good enough, then it's working tirelessly to make that true. If that program says things never work out for me, then it's screening every experience through that filter, finding evidence, rejecting contradictions, building a case. And this is the beautiful, liberating truth, the moment you change the program, the subconscious immediately begins working on the new directive. It doesn't hold grudges. It doesn't say, well, you believe the opposite for 30 years, so I'm going to need 30 years to switch. No. It responds instantly to the new instruction. I've seen this happen countless times. A person who has struggled with poverty consciousness for decades begins affirming abundance, really feeling it, really accepting it as their new identity, and within weeks, opportunities appear. Money comes from unexpected sources. Ideas arise. Doors open. A person who has lived with anxiety and fear for years begins declaring peace and confidence, and their entire physiology begins to shift. The tension releases. The sleep improves, the outlook transforms. This isn't magic. This is law. This is the subconscious mind doing exactly what it was designed to do, accept an impression and express it as experience. So ask yourself, what impression am I giving right now? Not what impression do I want to give someday when I'm more disciplined or more spiritual or more ready. What impression am I giving right now? In this moment, with this thought, with this feeling, because that's the one that counts. And here's what happens when you truly understand this. You stop preparing to live and you start living. You stop rehearsing your faith and you start using it. You stop talking about what you're going to manifest someday and you start manifesting right now in this present moment with whatever circumstances surround you. Because the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between big and small. It doesn't say, oh, this is just a minor situation. I'll wait for something more important before I really engage my full power. No. It responds to every impression with equal force, equal creativity, equal power. When you impress it with lack while waiting in line at the grocery store, it produces lack. When you impress it with frustration in traffic, it produces more situations that generate frustration. When you impress it with unworthiness when someone gives you a compliment, it creates circumstances that confirm your unworthiness. But when you impress it with abundance while paying your bills, even if the balance is lower than you'd like, it produces abundance. When you impress it with peace in the midst of chaos, it produces more peace. When you impress it with worthiness in every interaction, it creates circumstances that reflect your worth. This is why the masters throughout history have emphasized the importance of now. Not because the future doesn't matter, but because the future is being created now. Not because yesterday isn't important, but because yesterday's power to shape your life ended the moment you woke up this morning with the ability to impress something new. Every spiritual tradition points to this same truth, though they use different language. Be still and know. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. This moment is all there is. They're all pointing to the same reality. Your power exists entirely in the present moment because that's where impression happens. You cannot impress your subconscious mind yesterday. That opportunity has passed. You cannot impress it tomorrow. That opportunity hasn't arrived. You can only impress it now. And whatever you impress upon it now becomes the substance from which your tomorrow is built. This is simultaneously the most empowering and most sobering truth you'll ever encounter. Empowering because it means you're never stuck, you're never too far gone, you're never beyond the reach of transformation. Sobering because it means you can no longer hide behind excuses, no longer blame the world, no longer pretend that external forces alone determine your destiny. The power is yours, and with power comes responsibility. Now, I want to address something that often troubles people when they first encounter these principles. They say, "But Joseph, what about the terrible things that happen? What about children who suffer? What about innocent people caught in tragedy?" And I understand this concern. I do. But listen carefully to what I'm actually saying. I'm not suggesting that every single event in your life is a direct result of your conscious thinking. We live in a world where free will intersects, where collective consciousness creates shared realities, where physical laws operate, where others' choices impact us. What I am saying is this: your reaction to any circumstance, your interpretation of any event, and your ability to transform any situation begins in consciousness. Two people can experience the same tragedy. One emerges broken, bitter, closed. The other emerges compassionate, purposeful, transformed. The difference isn't the event. It's the consciousness brought to bear upon that event. The subconscious doesn't judge whether what happens is fair or unfair. It simply takes your dominant mental attitude and expands it into your experience of life. You have the power to reframe, to reinterpret, to extract meaning and purpose from even the darkest circumstances. This doesn't diminish the reality of suffering. It doesn't minimize pain. It simply recognizes that within you exists an unkillable capacity for renewal, for rebirth, for rising again. The subconscious mind is the mechanism through which this phoenix-like transformation occurs. Here's what I want you to understand about time. Your subconscious doesn't recognize the artificial divisions we call past, present, and future. It operates in an eternal now. When you vividly imagine something, when you feel it as real, when you accept it as true, your subconscious begins working on it immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, now, this very moment. Invisible forces are aligning, connections are forming, insights are percolating, circumstances are shifting. You may not see evidence immediately in the physical world, just as the farmer doesn't see the plant the day after planting the seed, but the process has begun. The farmer trusts the law of growth. He doesn't dig up the seed every morning to check its progress. He doesn't stand over the soil, anxious and fretting, wondering if he made a mistake. He waters, he tends, and he allows nature to do what nature does. You must adopt this same wisdom with your subconscious mind. Your job now is simple. Maintain the feeling. Return to it throughout your day. Not obsessively, not with desperation or fear, but with quiet confidence. When you wake in the morning, before you even open your eyes, feel the reality of your fulfilled desire. As you go about your daily activities, let that feeling be the undercurrent beneath all your actions. And at night, as you drift into sleep, return once more to that sacred inner sanctuary where your wish is already accomplished. This is not wishful thinking. This is the deliberate use of a law as precise as the law of gravity. You're not hoping it will work. You're not begging the universe for a favor. You're activating a principle that has operated since the beginning of time and will continue operating until the end of time. The subconscious mind accepts what you impress upon it and proceeds to externalize it in your world. This is its nature. This is what it does. Some of you may be thinking, "But I've tried this before. I've visualized, I've affirmed, and nothing happened." Let me tell you something with complete certainty. If nothing happened, one of two things was true. Either you didn't persist long enough, you planted the seed but abandoned it before harvest, or you simultaneously held a contradictory belief that canceled out your desired impression. The subconscious mind is utterly impartial. It will manifest whatever you genuinely believe. If you affirm prosperity while deeply believing you're unworthy of wealth, the stronger belief wins. If you visualize health while being convinced that your condition is permanent, the conviction of permanence dominates. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It simply reflects back your dominant mental attitude. This is why feeling is supreme. You can repeat affirmations mechanically all day long, but if there's no feeling behind them, you're merely making noise. The feeling, the sense of reality, the inner knowing is what impresses the subconscious mind. When you feel something is true, you believe it. And what you believe, you manifest. The subconscious mind does not argue with you. It does not question whether your feelings are justified or accurate. It simply accepts the feeling as instruction and begins to manifest conditions that correspond with that feeling. This is why two people can use the same affirmation with completely different results. One person repeats the words mechanically, without conviction, without feeling. The other speaks the words while simultaneously generating the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The first person sees no change. The second experiences transformation. I have seen this principle demonstrated countless times. A man comes to me and says, "I've been affirming prosperity for months, but nothing has changed." When I ask him to affirm it in my presence, I hear the words, but I feel the doubt. His tone carries disbelief. His body language reflects defeat. He is speaking one thing while feeling another, and it is always the feeling that wins. The feeling is the secret because feeling is the language your subconscious mind understands. It doesn't process logic or reason the way your conscious mind does. It responds to emotional conviction. When you feel prosperous, you impress prosperity upon your subconscious. When you feel loved, you impress the consciousness of love. When you feel healthy, vibrant, and whole, your subconscious begins to manifest health in your body. Now, here is where many people stumble. They try to manufacture feeling through willpower. They strain and force themselves to feel something they do not genuinely feel. This creates tension, resistance, and ultimately failure. Feeling cannot be forced. It must be cultivated through imagination. Imagination is the workshop where you create the feeling of your wish fulfilled. When you imagine vividly, with sensory richness and emotional engagement, you naturally generate the feeling that accompanies the fulfilled desire. You do not need to force it. It arises spontaneously from the depth of your imaginal act. Think of it this way. When you recall a joyful memory, you don't force yourself to feel joy. It comes naturally as you relive the experience in your mind. The same principle applies to your desires. When you imagine your desire is already accomplished, and you do so with sensory vividness, the feeling emerges effortlessly. Many students of this philosophy make the mistake of trying to manufacture feeling through willpower. They sit down, close their eyes, and strain to feel prosperous, healthy, or loved. This is backwards. Feeling doesn't come from effort, it comes from conviction. When you truly accept something as real in your imagination, the feeling automatically accompanies that acceptance. Consider a child lost in play with a toy airplane. Does the child work hard to feel like a pilot? No. The moment the child fully enters into the imaginative act, the feeling of being a pilot arises spontaneously. The imagination creates the experience, and the experience generates the feeling. This is the natural order. Your task, then, is not to force feeling, but to build conviction through repeated, vivid imagination. As you persistently return to your mental scene, seeing it clearly, hearing the sounds, touching the objects within it, your subconscious mind begins to accept it as real. And the moment your subconscious accepts something as real, the corresponding feeling emerges. This is why I emphasize the importance of persistence. One session of visualization rarely produces deep conviction. But when you return to the same scene night after night, embellishing it with sensory details, living within it as if it were your present reality, something profound happens. The imagined event begins to feel more real than your current circumstances. Your subconscious stops resisting. It accepts. And with acceptance comes feeling natural, effortless, authentic feeling. Let me offer you another key insight. Feeling follows focus. Whatever you dwell upon mentally will eventually generate a corresponding emotional state. If you constantly rehearse scenes of lack, worry, and limitation, you will feel poor, anxious, and restricted. If you consistently inhabit scenes of fulfillment, success, and abundance, you will feel prosperous, confident, and expansive. This is not pretense. This is not denial of facts. This is the conscious direction of your imaginative faculty toward the end you desire. You are not lying to yourself, you are selecting which version of reality you will energize with your attention and belief. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It does not debate whether your affirmation is true or false. It simply accepts what you impress upon it with feeling and conviction, and then sets about making it manifest in your experience. This is why two people can look at the same situation and have entirely different outcomes. One person facing a business challenge sees opportunity and growth. Another sees failure and ruin. Both are right because both are activating the creative power of their subconscious mind in alignment with their dominant mental attitude. The question is never whether this principle works. It always works. It is working right now in your life. The question is, are you using it deliberately and constructively, or are you allowing it to operate by default, manifesting whatever habitual thoughts happen to dominate your consciousness? I want to share with you now a technique that has transformed thousands of lives. It is simple, but profound. It requires no special equipment, no exotic rituals, no complicated procedures. It requires only your imagination and your willingness to persist. It is called the method of mental equivalence. Here is how it works. Everything that exists in your outer world, every condition, every relationship, every circumstance, is the physical manifestation of a mental equivalent that exists in your consciousness. If you want to change what is happening on the outside, you must first change the mental equivalent on the inside. You cannot keep thinking the same thoughts, holding the same beliefs, nurturing the same mental images, and expect your external conditions to suddenly transform. The outer is always a reflection of the inner, so if you desire better health, you must build a mental equivalent of perfect health. You do this by regularly picturing yourself as radiantly healthy, feeling the sensations of vitality and strength flowing through your body, giving thanks for your perfect functioning organism. If you desire prosperity, you must build a mental equivalent of abundance. You see yourself living in comfort and security. You feel the freedom that financial well-being brings. You imagine yourself generous and expansive, blessing others from your overflow. If you desire harmonious relationships, you must build a mental equivalent of love and mutual respect. You see the people in your life as divine expressions, worthy of kindness and understanding. You picture your interactions filled with warmth, cooperation, and goodwill. The mental equivalent must be constructed first. The manifestation follows. The mental blueprint precedes all visible change. You don't build a house without architectural plans. You don't launch a ship without detailed specifications. Why would the creative process of your life be any different? Your subconscious mind is the builder, and it requires clear, definite instructions from you. When you sleep tonight, your subconscious continues working on the last dominant thoughts you impressed upon it. If your final waking moments are filled with worry, complaint, or images of limitation, you're giving your inner builder faulty blueprints. You're commissioning a structure you don't actually want to live in. Instead, make it your practice to fall asleep with the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Feel the reality of your desire as though it already exists. If you seek financial freedom, feel the security, the relief, the expansion that comes with abundance. If you desire loving relationships, feel surrounded by warmth and acceptance. Your subconscious accepts feeling as the language of truth. It doesn't argue or analyze. It simply builds according to the emotional blueprint you provide. I've watched people transform their entire existence by changing their mental diet during the twilight moments before sleep. One woman, struggling with chronic health issues for years, began a simple practice. Every night, she would feel herself whole, vital, and energetic. She would thank her subconscious for perfect health. Within months, doctors were astonished at her improvement. She had given new orders to the builder within. This isn't bypassing medical care or practical action. It's recognizing that the invisible always precedes the visible. The thought comes before the thing. The feeling comes before the form. You are not manipulating external forces. You are aligning with the creative law that governs all manifestation. Your responsibility is singular. Provide the pattern. Provide it clearly. Provide it persistently. Provide it with feeling. The subconscious handles the execution. It knows how to coordinate circumstances, people, and events in ways your conscious mind could never orchestrate. Trust the process. Trust the law. Trust the builder within you that never sleeps, never doubts, and never fails when given proper direction. As you close your eyes tonight, remember, you are the architect of tomorrow's experience. Make your final thoughts worthy of the life you truly desire.